this is kind of a fascinating topic, karma and laws, universal laws. And it is very good to get a broader perspective on this law, because most of us understand karma at the level of if you do good, you will receive good, what you sow, so shall we reap. But with any law, it is useful to properly and accurately understand. Scientists throughout history have tried to discover laws that already exist. It's not that they invent things. They try to see patterns, they try to see systems. Scientists and philosophers, they try to see laws, and then if you properly understand it and build on it and develop it, then you can use that knowledge to your advantage in life. Not the very fact that there is light here and that we can do many things at night is because people have understood certain patterns and laws and use them to their advantage. It is not that those laws were invented by us, but there are certain in physics, in chemistry, in biology, there are certain laws that exist. But if we don't know them, we might go against them, and it doesn't serve us. The very fact that you have cities and high buildings and subways and internet and all these kind of specific gadgets is because there are laws that exist and human beings have tapped into them, understood them, properly understood them, and build on them and make use of those laws to make their life more comfortable. But it is not that those laws did not exist. They existed. Same with broader laws also. Spiritual laws. It is not that we have to make them up. We just have to learn to understand. We have to observe life, observe different phenomena, and then understand the patterns. And this is part of humanity's subservience, you could say. We cannot change these laws. Can you change the law of gravity? We cannot change it. But if we understand it, we can use it to our advantage. So, to understand that there are laws that govern our life that we cannot change. And we cannot challenge them. Or we can, but we will, what is it? We will, what's the word? We will suffer the consequences if we go against those laws. But if we use those laws, then we can build on them and make our life more comfortable. Now, to understand these spiritual laws, let us aim and see a little bit a broader perspective and a spiritual model to life, to get a grasp on this karma and what is going on there. Now, if we observe our life and if we apply some spiritual knowledge to it, the model that spiritual knowledge says of this world, of our life, is there is a physical world, and in the physical world there are things that we can perceive with our senses. So there is a body, and there are objects. This is a house. There are dollars. There are other people, relationships. And there is a non-physical dimension or a spiritual dimension. And spiritual knowledge says that we are in this world, in the physical world, but we don't belong here. Spiritual knowledge says we are spiritual beings and we are in this physical world. And we are here as travelers. Travelers or visitors, guests. This is what spiritual knowledge says. And this body is part of the physical dimension, and we are experiencers or guests. We have come into this world, we travel through this world, and at some stage we will leave. Anyone planning to stay here forever? So that means you are a visitor. Yeah? That is the definition of visitor. You have come, you stay, and you will go. Now imagine in your home, in your apartment, on whatever, penthouse apartment, you get guests. You get guests from wherever, guests you like. And in all cultures, people like guests. Is that true? Yeah? Here also in New York, we like guests.
Assuming that you invited them.
Assuming that you invited them. But in general, there is a tendency to be hospitable. In general, there is a tendency to, when guests come, you put your best. You offer them the best. You do whatever you can to make them comfortable, to make them feel pleased. You do your best. But say a guest has come, and he doesn't say when he's leaving. Will you still be very happy? You will become a little bit tense by that time. Huh? And if after a few days again you ask, when exactly are you leaving? And he will tell you, don't talk about leaving. I don't like to talk about leaving. What will happen? You will not be so happy either, no? And if after a few more days he will start saying, this is my room. Don't come into my room. Don't touch my things. These are my things. So he puts a border in your house. You can't cross there. He doesn't do what the house rules are, he puts his own rules now. Will you still be happy? Your hospitality will change, no? Your feelings will change. In the bigger scheme of things, do you recognize something similar? We have come here as guests, and what have we started to do? I don't want to go, first place. Also, you started saying mine, 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 mine. And so what is the reaction of nature? Hospitality changes. We have started to use this word, my. We have created lots of attachments and dependencies and addictions. And nature says, wait a minute, this was not the this was not the plan. This was not the idea, this was not the original agreement. The idea was you are a guest, then you behave as a guest, then I will give you the best. But when you change your attitude from guest to what? What is the opposite of a guest? Host? Well, not even host, just mine. Parasite. Oh, very good actually, that's a very good word, parasite. From a guest to a parasite. How will nature react? And with nature I mean broader, what is it, the world in general. Now do we like this word, mind?
Yes.
Yes.
So maybe that is the first law that we break. We are not living in alignment with the laws of the universe. This guest phenomenon, we break that. And by breaking that, what we invite? Problems. We invite forces that want to throw us out. Just like when a guest overstays in your apartment, you will start looking for ways to get him out in the same way. This host will start sending signals that it is time for you to either change your attitude or to go. Understand this deeper positioning in life. And so once we have entered into this mode of, this word is very good, parasite. What it does, it only creates more and more and more. Conflicts, hostility towards us. No? You understand this principle? So, if we deep down reflect and objectively look at life in general, we will see that this is what we are. And if we objectively look how our attitude is, we will also see that it is different. Now, if we want to create good karmic energy, what is the first thing that we can do?
To give to the planet.
Yeah, to change that attitude. Now, someone overstays in your apartment. What is the best thing that that person can do to start putting things right? Yeah, to start saying, okay, this is not mine, truly. Let me follow and use it by your rules, not by mine. Not starting to say mine, but use it as trusting and use it respectfully, according to the dynamics of the household. And let me find out what they are and not put my own selfish likes. Same here, bigger picture. Same. Now, in reality, nature wants to cooperate with us. The universe wants to cooperate with us. Now, if you, for example, look at your body, if you cut it, what will happen? It will bleed, it will cause pain, and what else? It starts healing. It heals Why does it heal?
Harmony?
Yeah, cooperation from nature. Nature wants to make you comfortable. Nature wants for you to survive. Nature wants for you to live. And nature wants for you to live comfortably. But not only you, also animals. Same applies. For plants, nature provides for life to flourish. Nature wants to give us the best, but we have to be as if living a life aligned to those laws. If I don't cut my finger, then nothing will happen and I can use my finger. Now in this nature that wants to cooperate with us, why is there this phenomena of pain?
It's a warning.
Very good. If there was no pain, we most probably wouldn't be here today. Because we would have done things that would have put the body in danger many times. For example, if there was no pain when you come close to fire, you will just come closer and closer and closer and burn. So the phenomena of pain is there for nature to balance our actions. Now the phenomena of nature is there to tell us something you're doing is dangerous. The phenomena of nature stops you from going into a direction that is potentially harmful and even dangerous to life. So even the phenomena of pain is benevolence of nature. It is nature's way to communicate with you something is wrong. You're moving into a direction that is dangerous. Understand? Now, there is pain that is physical, which is easy to understand. Well, not always, but at least some forms of physical pain are easy to understand. But emotional pain for us is already a bit more difficult to grasp. But the same principle applies there. If there is emotional pain, it means we have positioned ourselves emotionally in a wrong way. And that is why there is the experience of pain. If we experience mental pain, like stress, for example, it is a sign that we have positioned ourselves mentally wrong. It's like if you take your foot and you put it in your neck, what will happen? Anyone here can do that? I won't even reach, but if you reach, pain that will come will tell you this is not so intelligent. And the moment you put the foot down again, pain will subside. If you haven't really stretched something way too hard. So that pain tells you your position is not natural. Now any form of pain, mental pain, emotional pain, it tells you that your internal positioning is wrong. Just like the guest positioning versus the parasite positioning. The parasite positioning is not natural, and so nature will tell us, look, you really have to do something about these people. They're not getting it. Their attitude needs to change. So, the benevolence of nature, if we truly, sincerely, objectively study nature properly, thoroughly, and accurately, we will see that this thread runs through all the forms of basic sciences, and that there is an intelligence behind, and that there is a benevolence behind. But if we don't see the intelligence, and if we don't experience the benevolence, that just means it also means that I am not understanding properly. I am not seeing from a broad enough perspective. And the law of karma is stooped in all kinds of speculations and even superstitious ideas. And many of these laws are like that. And that is why we don't reap the proper results, because we do not properly, accurately, thoroughly understand this law. And think, oh, anything I do, I will get. There is much deeper basics behind, and it is good to properly understand this. So creating good karmic energy, one first thing to do is get this perspective right and shift away from that parasite attitude. The parasite is maybe that's a bit strong, but I just mean to say with that, why do we use the word mind here? If we have come and we will go. And what happens when we use the word mind, we also become insecure. Because if it is mine, I can lose it. And I will surely lose it someday. And that insecurity brings all kinds of complicated and unpleasant feelings and behaviors, which further invites problems. Now, if we again look at it objectively, reflectively, you say like that? Reflectively, objectively, can we truly own something here? Truly?
No.
So it is a wrong positioning. But we like this word mind. We like it with things and we like it with people. My husband. With, what is it? Emphasized in capital. Mine. We do it with position also. And then we properly suffer when we have to retire, for example. Creating good karmic energy is moving away from this limited perspective. But we don't leave it here. We go even further, down the, how do you call it? A rabbit hole?
I don't know what rabbit hole is.
Just, we go deeper into the mud. We not only say mind, we completely start to depend on it. We create dependencies, we create addictions, we create, as if these things become our complete support. Relationships, does it happen in New York? We were born alone, isn't it? For a big part of your early life, you didn't know most of the people you know in your adult life. And you were living a life. You know, in your adult life, all of a sudden, husband and children or whatever are there, and they become mine. And as if our whole sense of life becomes that, and our whole sense of identity becomes my husband, as if I don't exist without. So we don't only say mine, even further we start to create an I, meaning we start to create an identity. We start to identify. Job is a good example. No, we were not born with job, nor with a, what is it, diploma, your certificate, or your university degree. You were not born with that. You did not grow up with that. And then you go to university and you get some, or whatever, some education. Now that job becomes me. I am the doctor. And then that grows in my psyche. I am a doctor. I wasn't born a doctor, I didn't grow up a doctor. And then that becomes my whole sense of identity. Mother is another one. There are many identities. So it is not only that we say mine, but we also start to identify with things. And more we identify, more vulnerable we become. And it is not only with people, but also, for example, we start to identify with culture and feel that is me, and that is how I am, and that is how I always have been. We identify with race or skin color. And religion is another word. We might not even properly practice religion, but anybody criticizes their religion, we are ready to go to war. Or what, football team? To fight all these identities. Or even other things like shoe. There was a time when you did not have those shoes, but then you saved some money and you bought the shoe. Although saving is a bit old-fashioned now. People don't save anymore, they just go and buy. That is enough. But you wanted this shoe, what is it, some special brand shoe? I don't know.
Jimmy Choo.
Jimmy Choo. Jimmy Choo, low button. They say like that? Low button. I don't even know. But there was a time when that shoe was just in the shop. Now you buy that shoe and you kind of very conscious and waiting for anyone to make some comments about how good your shoe is. And if nobody comments on the shoe, you feel a bit disappointed. And men don't have problem with shoe, maybe, but with car. You start identifying with it. And then if somebody says, oh, this is ugly, Louis Vuitton. You feel offended. Now then we say, person criticizing that is my bad karma. Is it? I'm not a shoe. Very good. Very good. Excellent. So, if I did not go down that rabbit hole of identifying with the shoe, then person criticizing or not criticizing, it would not hurt me. And so to not get into this identification or these attachments and these dependencies, I would be able to go through life wear the low shoe, but internally there is peace. And no shoe would also be good, or another shoe without a name would also be okay.
You're not afraid of losing it.
You're not scared of losing it. No, and your sense of self is not based on these things that are offered to you by the host to use temporarily. Your true identity stays at this level, a spiritual being with higher potential who is traveling through the physical world. If we are able to stay in that consciousness, if we are able to stay with that attitude, then our host will, what will the host do? Smile and be very hospitable and give you the best, then low bottom. Stay as long as you want. Actually, your stay here uplifts me. Your stay is good for everyone. But if you're in the other mode, then your host will hopes you leave as soon as possible and might even send the police to get you out.
I did truly apologize to interrupt. It's just that you see people who actually were good human beings and did good and did good deeds, but the end wasn't, or what happened for them wasn't so pleasant. And that's where my my head gets, I get upset, because I see if it's a karma, is it just, is it from before, life before, is it from here?
No, it can be at that moment. Because people can be doing good things. I am a doctor. I am helping people. And I'm saving lives. So at that level of action, I think, oh, this is a good action. But internally, I am creating this. I am a doctor. That's my identity. And nature says that is wrong positioning. Understand? So at the level of consciousness and at the level of identification, that is where I go wrong. And then I become, the actions can be good, but then I can create another ego that I am a very good doctor. I'm not a doctor. And so, spiritual experience, and to tie myself here into I and mine and these identities, that is where the first breaking of the law happens. So say your guest comes to your apartment and he's not planning to leave. And he starts saying, this is my room, and these are my things, and this part of the fridge is my fridge part now. But he goes outside and does charity. Will you be happy with him? You won't be. First things right. And that is what happens here. So we cannot really judge the karma of others. First we have to internally begin to understand what is going on within me.
So we cannot judge others, like if something bad happens to that person. We definitely should not think they deserve the punishment.
No, you cannot judge, you cannot condemn, but you cannot know even properly.
But is it healthy for ourselves if something bad happens to us and we think, oh, maybe it's punishment? Is it healthy for us? It is never healthy to put the self down, but
if there is fire and I put my hand in fire and come closer to the fire and there is pain, what should I do? I should understand the pain, and I should understand why this pain is there and do the right move. So if some situation is happening, it means there is this process of identification. I and mine is behind that. And if I understand that, I can drop it. Not to make it a little bit more clear. If we draw a picture of our mind, with this thing going on, if this is our mind, then what is there in the mind? There is some I based upon doctor. There is an I based upon culture. That I am what? I am European.
Nationality.
Yeah, nationality. There is an I based on some position connected with the doctor role. There is identity based on some possessions, some things that I own. And someone may have even a bigger identity. That he's the director of the hospital where the doctor works. So there are many different I's, or someone may have the ego that I am the wife of the doctor. All these are there in the mind. Understand this? I'm trying to simplify this process. Now, this is like the wrong positioning at the level of the mind. And nature wants to set this right. Now, how will nature set this right? Nature wants to send us signals. You're doing something wrong, like you take your foot and you put it in your neck. That is unnatural. How can nature put this right? Say, for example, that I have this ego that I am the wife of the doctor. How can I learn to drop that ego, that identity?
By keeping in the mind that I'm just playing a temporary role.
Yeah, but if I don't know, or even if I know but I ignore that knowledge, how can nature teach you? Nature cannot talk. How does nature? Like what? I am the wife of the doctor.
The doctor dies.
Very good. But this is my karma, not the doctor's karma. I am the wife of the doctor. So doctor dying is doctor's karma. Doctor losing his license, that is his. It will indirectly affect me, but this is my karma. What will happen?
Yes,
He has a
Yeah, he marries someone else.
that's exactly.
Yeah, divorce.
What if you just don't feel right and you just not? Sometimes people identify with something and then they just don't. They know internally that it's not the truth, but they live it. Not necessarily, nothing bad has to happen, and they don't have to lose that.
That is okay. There are many levels of signals. But if ultimately we don't listen to all those signals, then every time the message is more heavy and more deep, you could say like that. Understand? I'm just just trying to simplify these dynamics so that we can learn to observe our lives like that and get a bigger hold of it. So this is very good. If there is a big ego that I am the wife of the doctor, doctor may decide to marry someone else. And what does that situation do?
She's the expert.
That is good. So that situation will nullify that ego, that identity, but she can create another one, that I am the ex.
Or she can marry another doctor.
She can marry another doctor.
She can become a doctor
Or
herself.
she can become a doctor herself.
That's still running away.
But that is just reshuffling. Then we create another one, and then every one of these has its, what is it, neutralizing mechanism. It's inviting a neutralizing mechanism. Now, forces that wants to teach us, you are a guest here. You're a visitor. You're a spiritual being. And this is a temporary experience. Now, this is, and every kind of identity has its specific force. For example, physical illness is another area. Now, we have used our sense organs and we have used this body to really, 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 really get attached here, addicted, dependent here. We have used our sense organs in some cases even for deep indulgences here. Now, and we have created an ego based on this body, an identity that I am this body. And that identity is big. Now, what can nature do to teach us? One way is physical illness. If we have taken pleasure in a limited way through the body, then the body will also become a source of pain.
Please repeat that.
Yes.
If we have taken pleasures, created attachment, created dependencies in this world through this body and through the physical senses, then this body will also become a source of discomfort and pain. To teach the soul, detach. You are not this body. And there are joys that transcend the sense organs.
Can you give an example, please?
Smoking,
Okay.
very simple example.
All right.
This is a gross example. There are much more subtle, but this gross example. Yeah. And sooner or later, that becomes a source of health issues.
But that's a dangerous substance you're talking about.
Yeah, that is why I'm saying it is a gross example, but it is good to use gross examples to understand the dynamic.
So, excuse me, you mean that anybody who suffers, goes through problems or sickness or pain, whatever, not a good love, not a good, it means that they did something wrong, they had too much ego, that it happened to them?
Ego doesn't mean arrogance. No?
No.
Ego just means creating a mind or an I.
So they are all because
The root cause, yes. The root cause.
so many miserable people, so many not, so many, they all have something to do with their position.
Is anyone here in this world, you think, that there are many people who live in the awareness of guest?
No.
I think the majority of the people we live here with the opposite attitude. And so nature and life in general is telling us, all of us, come out of this. Come back to spiritual consciousness. And actually we have created a culture and a society that stimulates us to go into this direction more and more and more and more. And nature is telling us, no, no, you are guests here and you have overstayed. Time to come back to your original state. And so good karmic energy would be to drop these identifications. Drop these I, my, me. What does it mean? What do they say? Me, myself, and I. Me. They call it the me generation.
So what I'm hearing is eliminating the experience of mind can create an opportunity for serenity, because I'm doing something in the business world now, and I found out that somebody I know who was married for 42 years just found out his wife came home from a trip and said she wanted a divorce. And I know this person, and it was very shocking. And that would indicate the lack of ownership of mind for him in the relationship. There was a husband and wife and no mind.
What we're trying to do at this moment is just understanding the dynamics. What the law of karma says is that these situations are tailor-made to some identity behind. So if I have created dependencies and attachments in relationships, then relationships will give me problems.
So there's never really a mind. There's never.
Exactly. It is never really mine, but we do create that in our mind.
I don't own my home.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't own my home.
Yeah. No, if that is
I
the
don't
right.
own my business.
Yeah.
I don't own my car.
Very good.
But then when your neighbor comes, moves into your home, and sits in your house, for example, or they take your car away and they use it for their own selves.
No, it doesn't mean that you do not treat things properly. Doesn't mean that you don't use things as a trustee. That is not what it doesn't mean, but the internal attitude is not of dependency.
That's really not mine.
Yeah. And the internal attitude is not of
I have use
indulgence.
I have use of it.
Yeah.
I can use it.
The internal attitude is of a trustee. That's still, like for example, this is not mine. And my identity is not based on this either. And I'm not dependent on it. If tomorrow it is not there, I will be fine. But that still doesn't mean that I will allow you to break it. Or to take it.
Yes, because you need to be a caretaker.
Exactly. A caretaker or a trustee.
Right.
That is the attitude. And nature is telling us, if you have that attitude, then nature will give us the best. Life will offer us the best. And it is tailor-made. It is for, if there is in relationships that wrong attitude, then problems will come through relationships. If their attitude is there around finance, then problems will come in finance. If that attitude is there with the body, then problems will come through the body.
So is the first part finding like the meaning in the pain or whatever's going wrong.
Yeah.
And then the second part would be like figuring out a way to move away.
Come out of it. But in general, if we come back to that first attitude, we are withdrawing from whatever we have grown dependent upon already at the level of the mind. And that anyway we're moving the right direction, even if I don't necessarily properly identify what is the deeper message behind, but it is anytime, anyway useful to figure out what is the message. And at this moment in time, as a society worldwide, we are not doing that. We are just reshuffling the problems. Now we have some health problem, we run to the pharmacy and take some pills or do some therapy or whatever, but we are not going deep enough. What is the attitude towards this body? What are we using this body for or what not? And that might be a better positioning, or that might be a more useful thing to do. And I'm not saying don't take medicine, but understand that the problem at its root is not being solved in that way. We are just reshuffling the problem if we only work at that level. So take your therapy and don't take your medicine or whatever, but know that the real causes are at this level and also work at this level. And so what would be a mind that invites the best? No, this kind of mind invites all these whatever complications. What kind of mind would invite the highest response from life? Yeah, an open mind. But to simplify it, coming back to that kind of a traveler consciousness, a spiritual being, an experiencer, temporary here. And we have all these beautiful gifts and toys to play with, but nothing is mine. No one is mine. And definitely it is not I. That is really even further down the trap. So to identify myself with this, that is really completely wrong positioning for the soul. Do we identify with body? How you know that?
Checking the mirror every day to see how you go.
That is the first thing. Mirrors are a sign.
You suffer for that.
We suffer for that also. Yeah.
You can actually detach yourself, yes, from your home or car, whatever your children.
Same. Is it my children?
No, but you have attachment. You have attachment.
Yeah. And because of that attachment, no, care is something else. But when we use the word attachment, I don't mean love or care. When I use the word attachment, we mean dependency. Huh? And love or care, actually you're in a better position to love. You're in a better position to care if you're not dependent, if you're not in bondage. And it is those positionings of, what is the word? Let me try and find a diplomatic word. Ownership. That is what is creating actually complications in relationships also. The expectations, the desires, the needs. And it it doesn't allow for real creativity and cleanliness of feelings that are unconditional to come out.
When you talk about dependent, are you saying dependent, like I'm dependent on you, I need you, or are you saying dependent, I'm dependent on how you act, like I'm dependent, I want you to do this,
Both.
it's dependent,
Both. Both.
so lose all that, right?
Well, if you're not dependent, you are free. And the other is also free. And then that is actually a truer kind of relationship. But we have not been exposed to these kinds of feelings for a long time. We have not had this kind of positioning for a long time. All we can do is explore, experiment, try to understand these dynamics. And we have sayings in our language, no? If you run after your shadow runs away. If you follow your own way, shadow follows you. There are sayings that hint at this. But also, what has happened, we have started to believe that this is normal. We have even started to believe that pain and suffering is normal. Yeah. We have even started to believe that stress is normal. We have started to believe that that pain is normal. And what the law of karma says, it is a signal of wrong positioning. And there is a state where you can be free from that. But for that you need to position yourself right.
My husband used to say, life is about solving problems.
Life is about solving problems.
This is the definition.
Definition of life. That is the case when we have not experienced problem-free life for a long time. No, but this is what has become our conditioning at the moment in time.
I was just thinking, because the definition of problem, everybody has a different one. Problems really are just results of our actions or our decisions that we have made. So, if you're saying that our life is about solving problems, is basically become responsible for what we have decided to do, I guess. So it's like it's a cycle.
Changing your decisions.
Exactly.
Choose
Your
making
problems are going to change.
Making different choices. Any final comments?
When one ages, the body begins to hurt and the organs begin to shut down. All of that is not this thing you're talking about. No? It's not like somebody who is detached and the body feels no pain even with the age until the very end and doesn't feel anything, and the organ collapsing.
This body has an expiry date. We all know that. It's not gonna be there forever, and there will be a time when it stops functioning. That given that there is a difference between just dying and aging naturally and suffering because of old age and suffering because of dying. But if the positioning is the body is a vehicle, like a car, and it is now getting old, then I don't need to suffer for the aging process. And even death as a phenomenon, we see that as a monster, isn't it? Most of us. In most cultures, there is lots of fear about aging, around aging and around dying. Now, what is the reason for that? Because we identify with it. We identify with it. We feel this is I. And so, old aging body means my value goes down. Dying means I stop existing. So that is one part. The other part that you're saying is different pains and different, what is it, joint pains and back pains and headaches and all kinds of pains that are there. There is a message behind that too. But also, in the process of what is disidentifying with the body, also the sensations of pain can become less. Now, for example, one person, a mosquito bite and it is like a huge thing. And someone else, even if there is a cut, they hardly, they hardly notice. They notice because blood is coming or something. That also has to do with karmic factors and how I have used the body and for what I have used the body. And so withdrawing from sense experiences, not experiences, withdrawing from indulgence through the body and using the body for higher quality of actions will make us less susceptible for pain through the body also.
Higher action is
If you're using the body to serve instead of to take. And for example, this gross example of cigarette is a gross example. But if we have used our body for smoking, for example, we have made our body weak, and we are more susceptible to pain also. And even at the soul level, for example, if, this may be a bit technical, but if I rub this skin, more I rub it, the sense receptors in the skin increase. So more I rub it, more sensitive this patch of my skin becomes, but also more sensitive to pain it becomes. And less I rub it, less sensitive and less sensitive to pain also. So our perception of pain, even at a neurological level, also has to do with how much we and for what we have used our body. But this is a bit more technical. And that is why some people have a very high pain threshold and others are very low because of the different ways we have used our body and what we have used our body for. Someone was saying? We have to stop in a few minutes.
What about people who are not good people? They don't do good, and then they have a lot of everything. Not only physical, but they're blessed with.
First of all, we should understand this love for ourselves. and research it, investigate it, experimented with it, understand it thoroughly, and apply it for your own life. And work at this level also. Because we don't really know of anybody else. And even if someone is bad in terms of the actions that I see, I don't know what is going on in the mind. The only thing I can know is that they're sure not creating good karma. So that future whatever, but I don't know what credit someone has from the karma.
Yes. From the past, you mean past lives?
Maybe this life even. It doesn't need to go past life. This life ourselves. And it is more important for me to know, let me work on my credit. Because that is what we are interested in, quality of life for myself.
Is it possible those are also like signals?
Of
Like
course.
those people we see when we don't know?
They are signals for us also. Yeah. Very good. That is why we cannot judge. Because the very fact that I am exposed to that says something about me and my internal factors. Anyway, this is a vast and deep topic. And we can go on all night. But just reflect on this and try and observe your life and decode. At least start understanding that there is a message behind. That in the bigger scheme of things, nature is intelligent. And there is a deeper message behind. And if we are not understanding it, that is up to me to try and understand deeper. And not just superficially or superstitiously, but let us properly, thoroughly see. Even this body itself, if you just observe how mechanisms work to make this body function and to give you a functioning body, that in itself is a miracle, and you can learn so much from it. But of course, there is also pain if we do not use it properly.
So what is it like that, for example, all of a sudden earthquake comes, or the tsunami hits, or something, and there are thousands of people suffer.
Mm.
They die. What is it? Because of their karma?
If some
Or
guest,
the child gets sick,
if a guest
and
comes,
is pain, what has that child 3 years old done?
if a guest comes to your house and overstays and makes a mess of your house, what will you do? Doesn't want to go and destroys everything in your house, what will you do?
I don't destroy the whole town or the country.
But what will you do?
I'll kick them out.
Now, what has humanity done to this planet? Over many, 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 many years. What have we done with the planet?
Yes.
Okay.
But the
So how will humanity
so
learn?
this is the punishment of
You can call it punishment. I don't think we should call it punishment.
the tsunami shows up, or the earthquake.
I think we should not call it punishment. We should own up to the consequences. It's a sign. It is a sign that we need to change the way we use this planet. That we need to change our attitude. We just want to continue and do and do and do, and nature has to continue to support. Nature is not doing that anymore.
Why that particular group of town?
We don't know what goes on internally in people. And if we truly understand this, we stop blaming and we start taking responsibility. And in the beginning I have said we are spiritual beings and we are guests here, travelers. Soul is traveler. So even a baby is not necessarily at the beginning of the journey. They may have started the journey previous life and is carrying this baggage. Because even if you change situations, even if you move somewhere else to Russia, or even if you change life, this goes with us. Yeah, very good. Better understand it and create good karma for yourself by positioning yourself right. And the practices are simple. The practices are play with this perspective and come out of this I and mine. Play with it and observe it. More we say mine, more I get into the bulk. So next time we meet, what will happen? We will all have lots of karmic credit. Okay. Let's close with a minute of silence. Let's just play with this thought. And the real self is an invisible being of consciousness. A traveler. We are all travelers. And the beauty and the richness of a traveler is that he can enjoy any scene. It doesn't get tied down. Doesn't expect. And that frees the mind from neediness and insecurities. So much more space for appreciation and respect and true love. We are beings who belong to the spiritual dimension. The world of silence and light, changeless, timeless, endless beings of light. Beings of peace. the spiritual positioning, the spiritual attitude towards the whole physical world. Is one of a temporary visitor. Then matter will honor us. Matter will serve us. Matter will offer the best. For those who are here for the first time, a special welcome. On the desk there is a mailing list if you would like to receive the programs, but there's also a program on the desk. Every Thursday we have these kinds of sessions, and there are also courses and other activities, and a program on the desk. This weekend we are closed, so have a good Memorial Day weekend.
Yesterday I was about to write an email and then it was Kumaris and all the so happy you are here. And you should not go back until
So I'm well.
yeah.
Okay, that's my plan, that's my plan.
Maybe it's not
I guess we need another year of pain to get the message. But I have to tell you about Haiti when I see you with the BB.
I have to communicate better. No. Communication is the responsibility of the communicator. So I did let you know he was coming here tonight. That's fine. But it's good to know that I didn't let you know that. Thank you.
When did you have that conversation? When you came in?
When I said Ananta's coming tonight.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't say he's coming here tonight.
Ah.
So that was lack of communication. Yeah, which was good to know that I have to improve a little bit.
Well, I have to, see, I was expecting the whole.
you are getting.
Oh, I am. On the way out, okay.
Please walk here.
I didn't want to keep it
I
standing.
need to take it off.
Thanks for letting me know.